Smooth 98.1 Lagos, Nigeria world. Welcome. It is 15 minutes of Business Express right here on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Sope Martins, and today I've got someone in from Nairametrics, Samuel Oyekanmi, who is an old hand at Business Express already. He's a macroeconomic analyst with Nairametrics, and he joins me today to discuss what is going on that big sell-off that happened in the market last week. Samuel, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sope. I'm very fine. And you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Very glad to have you on the show with me discussing
I like your
what
look
went
up, by
down.
the way.
Thank you. It makes for great. Moving on. Anyway, so Samuel, lots to ask you about today. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is make sure that everybody can join the conversation. We are already streaming live up on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. If you're already there on the YouTube platform, hello, good morning, welcome. And make sure you leave your comments up on the live stream so that we can have you join in via the live chat. You can also send WhatsApp messages into 0809 444 981, and you can take things to Twitter by using the hashtag BusinessExpress981. If you want to just double check and double ensure that your message gets into the right place, of course, you can tag us at Smooth981FM. All right, so Samuel, first things first, that big sell-off in the market last week, what were the triggers? What on earth happened there?
Well, of course, I think in the third quarter of the year, we should have been expecting this. I think it has been a trend, really. In the first half of the year, we had a significant bullish movement in stock prices in Nigerian equities market. And all we're just seeing is some form of moderation. Of course, the rising interest rate by the CBN, a lot of investors are trying to reallocate their funds, either in a bid to hedge against inflation or just to put their money in safe haven assets right now, because of course it's better to have your money kept somewhere than to have it being lost based on variable assets. And that's what we're saying. So if you see the likes of Airtel Africa that gained over 100% in the first half of the year, and over 100% in the first 9 months of the year, you see some form of moderation, selling as high as 2,000 naira per unit of shares at some point in September. Of course, you would expect, it gives you an indication of how overpriced some of these assets are. Likes of Nestle Nigeria are also quite on the high side. So you're seeing some form of moderation right now. You see people want to take profit. Of course, we are going to the end of the year. People want to count their profit.
All right, then. So speaking of this, now the market was as high as 17% year to date earlier on this year, but now we've got a return of just around the 4% November, and November is around the corner. So is there any chance, because November, December, is there any chance that we can get back to that double-digit return in 2022?
Well, the chances are quite slim, but I would still expect it to still probably be around 11-12% at the end of the year. Earlier in the year, we had as high as 21% actually. But recent events right now, the depreciating currency, Nigerians wanting to invest in a more safe asset like the US dollar and dollar-denominated funds, want to save, but want to invest in treasury bills. Treasury bill yields are high right now. Federal government bonds are also quite high right now. So a number of people want to probably put their money on safe assets or have their money with them. In fact, speculation of high inflation rates coming next year or towards the end of the year is also
risk
forcing people
appetite
to
has just
start
been
spending
diminished.
now. Exactly.
Okay.
That's what we're saying right now.
All right, but you're still thinking that we can do an 11-12%?
I would believe so. Yeah, it can't be that bad. We should be around 11-12.
I said we went from 21% to 4%. You're now saying back to, this is like a roller coaster. It's a seesaw, man.
Well, the market, there's always the ups and downs, right? As much as we are going to have a lot of sellers, people want to sell, we're also going to have people bring in their monies also because of the uncertainties of what could happen next year. Next year is an election year. So you might probably see some form of, because again, if you look at the banking stocks right now, you would expect them to do better because of the CBN interest rates. So you might be seeing some form of investment in that regard also. And others who probably expecting some form of dividend payment later next year, or even some companies like Seplat who might actually declare dividend for the third quarter of the year. You see some people also want to buy into those stocks. So that could also do well.
Okay. All right. Now, Up on the Nairametrics site, right? One of your articles says this. Let me even see if I can find it. All right. Confusion among black market traders as exchange rate goes haywire. So let's talk about that exchange rate, right? Because these BDCs seem to be in all shades of confusion with respect to the parallel market rates. So what was going on there?
I think it's quite expected. It's saddened, but it's also quite expected because right now there's no uniformity in terms of exchange rate. Remember last year when the CBN halted sales of dollars to BDCs. Right now they are relying on how much they buy. That's going to determine how much they're going to sell, and there are a lot of speculations around it. And nobody, when there's huge arbitrage like this, nobody wants to be caught at the losing end. So you see these guys having to call themselves to confirm what the rate is, and then the constant change in the rate also calls for some form of like you said, confusion, because in the morning you check it is 7:40, in the afternoon it's already 7:45. By the next day you get
there's some
7:50.
tracker sites, right? And then you'll just be saying the update again all in one day. And you're like, how many times can this currency change like this?
It's terrible. If you call 10 BDC operators right now, you're going to get 10 different rates. Even if they're all in Lagos State, you get different rates. And some of them have to call some other persons to also confirm how much they sell for your area, or before they will tell you their own rate, because of course they don't want to be at the losing end.
So hold on, can we say that the whole point of this, because I know you talked about them calling each other, is it because there is this information lacuna, this information void, that we're seeing the haywire rates?
Yeah, of course. There's a big gap when it comes to information. There's no uniform, or there's no unified database where people can actually get this information, and that's why Nairametrics has been helping in this regard to ensure that on a daily basis, Nigerians are well informed about the rates. But when it comes to the parallel market themselves, also last year the CBN banned Aboki FX from reporting rates.
And that's the thing. Now it's stuck in my memory because Aboki FX was where everybody went to make sure, okay, so this is what's happening on the parallel market.
Exactly. Yeah. So right now they do not have that, and that gives room for even more speculation, because an Aboki, you could call an Aboki today and he's going to intentionally add 10 naira margin just to see. So it depends on your bargaining power. If you cannot price them very well, he's going to sell for that amount, and that amount is going to stick. And that's how you see. So
basically this is a speculator's dream. This is something speculators are taking advantage of?
I'm not saying that is exactly, but I'm saying that is a possibility. So you don't quote me.
It's a possibility, but we haven't seen anything like that?
Yeah, we cannot say for sure, but it's a possibility that speculators could actually use this as an opportunity to start.
High possibility?
Oh, well, Mushokwe, please.
Okay, Mr. Oyekanmi, I'll leave that question hanging in the air. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the floods now, because that is something that we have not seen the last of, and we've definitely not seen the last of the consequences of, right? So loads of SMEs have been impacted by the floods, and yet the Nigerian Meteorological Agency says that this could all have been avoided if the states had just heeded their warnings. What do you make of that statement?
Yeah, I think, in my own opinion, it's always easier for agencies to start coming up when the problem is on already. In my own opinion, yes, we've had a lot of issues around flooding and warning in the past 2 years, and we won't say we're ignorant of that fact, but how much more did they actually drive their point home to the federal government and the state government to ensure that they actually listen, and they are actually they understand that this warning is imminent and it's going to happen. So I think now is not the time to chat.
Hold on, Samuel, hold on 1 second, because I remember when they were issuing their warnings, they gave us months. And we're in the month of the floods. So I don't understand. They gave it to us down to the date. So
yeah, they gave you the information. So there's one thing to give information. There's another. It's their job, but how much more did you go? Did you talk to this government, have discussions with them, let them know this impact? Don't forget that our leaders are politicians. They're not really, and they are not necessarily administrators. They don't understand the business risk. They don't understand the downside to some of these events. But if you have a sit down and keep driving it home to them, I am not trying to defend the government here. Trust me, they have their own flaws and it's big. But I'm saying, as experts who understand the effect of this flooding on the people, on the country, I think you could probably have done more to drive your points home, either to the federal government or the state government.
And on the economy, which is something that the government should definitely be interested in.
Of
But
course.
so we've heard from different sources, right? We've seen farmers saying, okay, bird flu is overtaking our avian populations. That we've heard from companies that, oh, crops and yields have been completely affected. What kind of inflationary effects are we going to see from the floods?
Man,
Can
that's
you
a scary
even begin
number.
to predict?
Yeah, it's a scary number because and that it makes it worse when you look at the Nigerian economy on its own. It has its own underlying problem. So even without flooding, we're already dealing with a headline inflation of 20.77. We're talking about food inflation in excess of 21%. So we have a whole lot problem. We have food crisis on its own that has been from the days of 2016, 2015, the first ban on FX for some imported items, closure of land borders, COVID-19, and 2020, 2021 attacks in the northern areas, and 2022, the Russia-Ukraine war. So we have a multi-effect, multi-problems affecting our food supply in the first place. Adding flooding, you just don't want to start imagining how that is going to affect our food supply, especially when you know that we do not really have, we can't go back to importing, especially talking about rice, for example. Price of rice rose to over 40,000 naira last week. Olam's farm said they lost about 15 million worth of rice farm due to flooding. And many other farmers have also said this. Now, when you
Somebody's going to have to pay for that.
couple that with some other issues, I can tell you the numbers are not looking friendly right now.
Oh boy. All right. I got this message in, a couple of messages in from Oyekanmi, who says, did you notice that many petrol stations are selling in one pump or not selling at all, creating a scarcity of fuel? Meanwhile, just like he said, a bag of rice is going for 40,000 naira and above. Where are we headed? He also says Nairametrics did their job. If the politicians choose to be deaf, it's not their fault. And Oyekanmi says they understand nothing. Wonder why we voted in these people. And that's all I'm doing. I had to really edit your message, Oyekanmi, because I couldn't read most of it out. But you can keep on sending your messages. Oh, actually, we have just a little less than a minute left. So the last thing I want to talk about is we've always seen this annual thing of December inflation, right? The Yuletide inflation. Now, are we going to see, what does the inflationary effect of the floods mean on, are we going to basically, my question is this going to be some extra magical maths where we're going to see flood inflation plus December inflation come together to create some sort of super duper inflation?
Well, that's quite an interesting question, right? But yes, flood is definitely going to have to play its own part in our food basket, our food inflation. Because inflation is actually a year-on-year comparison, we might not really be as terrible as we would probably expect. I wouldn't expect it to be that high in terms of numbers. But when you go to the market, you will definitely feel the effect of inflation. You remember that inflation has a lot of baskets. Some things will go up, some things will come down. And at the end of the day, the numbers could still be around 21, 22%. And it might seem like it's not that terrible. But when you go to the market, you would actually see that prices of things have gone up significantly.
That's when you'll see it at work. Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Samuel Oyekanmi, macroeconomic analyst with Nairametrics. Thank you so much for joining me for Business Express. It was an interesting show. I noticed that you have some politician blood in your veins, refusing to answer a certain question, but it's okay. We'll leave it hanging. I look forward to having you on the show another